Welcome back. You're watching India Global with me, Gaurie Dwivedi. Shifting focus now to Bangladesh, and the latest coming in there is that at the sidelines of the UNGA, Mohammad Yunus, who made his first trip to the UNGA as the interim advisor to the interim government, did reach out and met US President Joe Biden as well as former President Bill Clinton. Of course, there's also assurances coming in from America in terms of greater aid and also ensuring that Mohammad Yunus has support of America at a time when he's promised reform, though he hasn't promised a path towards restoring democracy. How does that add up? What does it mean for India? Let's get in Mohammad Ghazali to fill us in with the very latest. Go ahead, Mohammad, tell us.
So this meeting is very significant considering that Bangladesh has got a new government after the ouster of Sheikh Hasina, the former Prime Minister of Bangladesh, and how US has shown its interest in stabilizing democracy as well as providing aid for Bangladesh. Because, you know, if you see all the neighboring countries, be it Maldives, Sri Lanka, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and even Bangladesh, until the economy stabilizes there is always an unrest or a chance of unrest being created there. So Bangladesh's interim advisor of the interim government, Mr. Yunus, met with Mr. Biden. He also introduced those student protesters, or the leaders who led this protest against Sheikh Hasina, and perhaps Mr. Biden was very impressed with the kind of protest led to the ouster of Sheikh Hasina from Bangladesh. But the key center frame of this entire meeting was the aid. Mr. Yunus was promised that United States will keep providing aid to Bangladesh to stabilize its economy, because until the economy stabilizes in Bangladesh, Mr. Yunus has a lot to do, because elections are still pending there. Mr. Yunus had also promised, after taking over as the advisor of the interim government, that he will see multiple and major reforms in the country, after which he will go for elections. So to get those reforms, perhaps the major reforms is required in reviving the economy. Also, it also shows the kind of interest US is showing after facing allegations that they were the ones who engineered Sheikh Hasina's ouster from Bangladesh. But now they are also showing keen interest in stabilizing democracy there, providing aid to Bangladesh, and also a very key US State Department official, Mr. Donald Lu, had visited Bangladesh just earlier this month. So a kind of prominence being given to Mr. Yunus, who's it's first meeting overseas trip for Mr. Yunus, who has gone to US to attend the UNGA session and also met not only Mr. Biden but also Bill Clinton.
Yes, indeed. There were lots of unsubstantiated claims that it was America that was behind Sheikh Hasina's ouster. In the background of that, this meeting has taken place. Mohammad, thanks much for filling us in with all those details. In fact, staying with Bangladesh, well, Mohammad Yunus has also made a statement about repatriation of Rohingyas. Remember, there are 1.2 million Rohingyas who are in Bangladesh, and it seems that one of the issues that the advisor right now wants to address is to have some sort of a permanent solution as far as repatriation of Rohingyas is concerned. Mohammad Yunus, who right after taking over as the advisor to the interim government, in his first speech did not say about Rohingyas being repatriated, and he's saying so right now. What has changed in the last 5 weeks is a question that we will ask. More importantly, is this a possible solution that can be executed? What lies ahead? Security implications of 1.2 million Rohingyas being repatriated to neighboring countries, whether it is their security implication for India and of course Thailand, besides of course for Bangladesh as well. All right, let's get in my guest joining me this evening on this debate. We have Saleem Samad, as well as we also have Shamsher Chowdhury joining us, who's a former Foreign Secretary, both joining us from Dhaka. In fact, Mr. Chowdhury, let me start with you, sir. As things stand right now, this has been a simmering issue for several years now, not just for Bangladesh, which is of course at the receiving end of a much larger amount of displaced Rohingya refugees, but also for India as well. And the fact that this is now being discussed at the highest level, Mohammad Yunus is now wanting to create some sort of a global diplomatic consensus around it. How do you see this? His comments at the UNGA.
Thank you very much for including me in this dialogue on a very, very important, significant issue, not just for Bangladesh, mainly for Bangladesh, but also I think other neighboring countries. And you have very rightly mentioned India, Thailand, and even China. They are also having a problem. You see, this is not the first time that the Rohingya crisis has been declared in a UN forum. It has been discussed before. There were statements and there were proposed resolutions, which unfortunately were vetoed by China and some even in the case of Russia. I think not just Professor Yunus, the rest of the world cannot or overemphasize the seriousness of this problem. And you rightly said 1.2 million. What you could not add is it's 1.2 million and counting. There are thousands of children, babies being born every day, and that number is growing. Now, when Mr. Donald Lu was here, one of the things that was discussed with him and our Foreign Secretary, Mr. Jasimuddin, that we need to be very concerned with the Rohingya crisis, and we need to look at the root causes of the Rohingya crisis. The root causes lies in Myanmar and the Myanmar military junta.
But 7 years have gone by, not a single Rohingya has been repatriated. As I said, Bangladesh bears brunt of it, some of the other neighboring countries also, but not a single Rohingya has been repatriated back to Myanmar. It's been 7 years. The reason why I'm asking you and saying this is because, we need a plan in place. One is an aspiration, one is a goal, but second is the plan to execute such an aspiration.
Well, the plan, everything lies in what happens inside Myanmar. Is Myanmar ready? Is Myanmar in a situation to take back even one Rohingya? They are not. The present military junta in Myanmar is not in a position to take back even one. And that's why this military junta is being discarded not just by Bangladesh, but even by its ASEAN member countries. Many of the meetings of ASEAN countries, the Myanmar military leader is not invited because of the situation there. And now the military junta, actually, its writ is limited only to the capital and surrounding areas. It doesn't have control of large parts of Myanmar where different groups are now operating, armed groups are operating, seeking independence, seeking, not independence only, but also seeking separate autonomous status within a federal Myanmar. I was in Bangkok quite recently. I had talked to some very important, I was on a private visit though, but because I have some friends very high up in the military government, in the Thai government, they said that unless, and I'm quoting, I wouldn't name them, but they said unless there is a regime change and a federal Myanmar evolves, Rohingyas will not be repatriated.
So then is it a non-starter? Let me ask this to Saleem Samad. Is this really a non-starter? Because, what Muhammad Yunus is trying to do is build some sort of a global diplomatic consensus on an issue where most parties feel the same. There is no divergent views. But the fact is, how does Bangladesh go about executing this at the time when the prospect of executing such a plan looks fairly bleak?
Thank you, Gaurie, for having me on the show. First of all, it has to be understood that the Arakan army, the very armed group, has already taken over 80% of the Arakan province. So that is one of the reasons. And as has our predecessor has mentioned about the government. First of all, the Arakan army as well as the military ruler in Myanmar has no capacity to have them return. First of all, the UNHCR, the UN Refugee Agency, is totally responsible for the repatriation. And UNHCR has already mentioned with the Bangladesh government several times that unless Myanmar guarantees citizenship rights of the Rohingya, the freedom of movement, the access to livelihood, healthcare and education, which is totally banned. So you cannot send somebody who will not get education, healthcare, and blah, 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 work and movement, or even citizenship rights. So they are nobody in that country. At least they are refugee in Bangladesh. But when they return to Myanmar, Myanmar is already troubled, and Arakan army also doesn't want the refugees from Bangladesh to be repatriated. They are also having trouble with the Rohingyas, even in Myanmar.
Okay, this is an important point, but let me tell you this. On the 18th of August, when Mr. Muhammad Yunus made his first major government policy address, And I'm quoting what he said regarding Rohingyas. He said that his government will continue to support the million-plus Rohingya people sheltered in Bangladesh. He says we need the sustained efforts of the international community, but we will continue to support. So I want to ask you this, that what has changed in the last 1 month from what he said when he took over and said that he supports, to now when he wants to build a consensus as far as repatriation of Rohingyas is concerned. Is that a domestic concern and a domestic constituency that he's trying to address here? And hence he's making these statements?
So nothing has changed. I mean, if you look into what he has mentioned on, as you has quoted, and whatever he said at the UN, there's nothing, the policy has not changed. Bangladesh definitely had already welcomed this 1.2 million. So where are they going to throw? They cannot throw it in Bay of Bengal. Number one. Number two is repatriation is an issue that has to be continuously a diplomatic effort that has to be undertaken by the global leaders.
Yes.
So
okay. So let's quickly get in. Let's quickly get in, Mr. Chowdhury, as well. I'm running out of time. Yes, sir. I just read out the statement that Mr. Mohammed Yunus made on the 18th of August, and that we are of course debating the statement that he made at the UNGA yesterday. There is a slight difference in terms of the urgency regarding addressing the issue. Why do you think that urgency is there?
I think the urgency is there because it is becoming almost unbearable for Bangladesh to continue to hold them. And the idea that why Professor Yunus is raising this is to keep on drawing global attention that this is a very, very, very serious issue. And unless there is a effort by everyone involved, including India, including China, ASEAN countries, Arab countries, everybody, we cannot keep on holding. It is a huge burden on us economically. We did not welcome them. We gave them shelter because they were being pushed out of the country. They are disenfranchised in Myanmar. Even Aung San Suu Kyi, who holds the Nobel Peace Prize, she did nothing about it. She absolutely ignored the whole issue herself. Now that she has been thrown out by the government, she's not a factor anymore. It is the military who have to. So, but the fact remains that whether it's Professor Yunus today, somebody else tomorrow, previously former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina also kept on referring this at the UN, that this has to be part of a global effort. Bangladesh alone cannot do it. This is what we are reiterating everywhere.
Absolutely, 1.2 million people who can't return to their homes at a time when Bangladesh itself, the host country right now, is facing tremendous economic, social, political turmoil. Is the key question. What happens? Can a possible global consensus be built? Will Mr. Yunus have this as one of his lasting legacies? Is a question that we'll come back and address in coming days. But thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining me in this edition of India Global. And with that, it's a wrap from me. Thanks for watching.